Hello, dear friends. Today I'm working on a kitchen towel, and this is a flour sack towel. And I'm using my jumbo hoop, and I just have some medium weight tearaway stabilizer hooped, and I'm floating my towel there on top. I've put just a little bit of 505 spray on each side just to hold my towel, not very much. And I have the 770 QE Bernina, so my design really needs to go from side to side in the hoop, because up and down from top to bottom, my hoop is not, my machine will not recognize about 1.75 inches or so on the left side of the hoop. So if I put my design the other way, the hoop isn't big enough. So I'm going to try to position it this way. I've used my Embroidery Essential software and printed this off from the software, and it printed it off actual size, so I can line it up with the central marks on my hoop and make sure that I get my design going the right way. I'm gonna get my hoop in here and get my design pulled up. I have it on a USB stick that I probably have too many things on. And since, I had my design going side to side, I've got to rotate it in the hoop on my screen so that my machine will stitch it out the right way. And I have to be sure and highlight that I have the right presser foot and the right stitch plate. And make sure you highlight those, otherwise the machine won't let you go. So we'll go ahead and send that to the machine, and I've placed a little mark, that little purple mark there. In my software, I ran the stitch simulator so I could see where it started stitching and make sure that I had that all lined up then when I got going. So I'm going to move my needle just a little bit by turning the knobs. They're kind of off to the right hand side of the screen, but you'll see that I'm going to turn my knobs here and move that just a little bit, get that straightened out and centered there. There we go. Now we're moving the knobs. Then I drop my needle and make sure that the needle's going to pierce the purple spot that I made on my template. And now I am going to put down a basting box. Since I'm floating my towel, I really need that. And I'm using my yellow, my gold. Some people call it yellow, some gold bobbin case, because I'm doing embroidery. And just kind of lining up my colors here. There is a color sheet that usually comes with embroidery files. So I just, as close as I can, I follow the color sheet. I've usually picked my own shades, but it'll still be green, or it'll still be blue, or pink, whatever. But I kind of pick my own shades sometimes. I'm kind of a rogue. I don't always follow the rules, which is okay. Go ahead and load my first thread color. Get that going. I always use a thread net. You may see that later on in this video. When I change colors, I always use a thread net, especially on embroidery thread. And you see I'm using tweezers, pulling my thread through, and when I pull up my bobbin thread, I always use tweezers. I never get my fingers close to the needle. So using my up-down needle button, I'm pulling up my bobbin thread. And when I do embroidery, I use a 40 weight embroidery, polyester usually, embroidery thread. And then in my bobbin, I have like between 60 and 100 weight, depending on what I'm doing, Invisifil thread in my bobbin. If I'm doing light things, I use white, and if I'm doing dark things, I use black. And then I have a lavender color that I use that sort of blends in with everything in between. Getting my basting box all stitched down here. When the basting box is done, the machine will move to the very first stitch of the design. I'll do just a little stitching here. You can kind of see how it begins, and here in a minute I'm going to turn the lights off on my machine. You'll see me do that by going into the settings, into the sewing machine, into the lights, and turn them off so you can see a little better. They're quite bright for the camera, so this may help a little bit so you see the stitching a little better. This design is from Embroidery Library. I'll put the link to it in the description box, so you can go find it if you want to make a towel. And I got my towel. I get all my flour sack towels from Mary's Kitchen online. I always wash them and dry them in the dryer, and then I press them before I embroider them. So here's a thread net, a spool net. I always use one of those. It is very, very helpful. They're very helpful. And we're going to take off on this next color. Using my tweezers, keeping my fingers safe. Here we go. I'm going to trim my thread here. I do have a setting in my machine that will, the machine will automatically stop and give me time to trim thread, but I rarely use it because once you get started with your new thread color, the thread cutter will cut it for me at the exact right length when it moves from place to place in the design. So it's only when I have to change colors that I really need to stop the machine and switch and clip the threads. I'm using a number 15 foot. It has a little lip on the front of it that lets it sort of glide along. I don't use the 26 foot very much, which is the it's the recommended foot for embroidery, but I rarely use it. I almost always use the 15. Kind of depends on what I'm doing. I'll also use the cup foot sometimes. I don't have this towel very tight in my hoop. I think here in a minute you'll see I use my finger and kind of roll along on the top of the towel so you can see that it really is just floating on top of the stabilizer. When you put something in a hoop and you actually hoop the project, the tighter that you tighten the hoop, there you can see the little wrinkles rolling under my finger, so you can see how it's not very tight. The tighter that you tighten your hoop, it pulls in on the ends and pushes out on the sides if you get it too tight. And of course this one is this one is floated, but sometimes when you get a lot of puckering and you wonder why, it could be that you have your project too tightly hooped. The fabric needs to have room to move a little bit with the stitches, and using a ballpoint needle and sometimes 2 layers of stabilizer will make a big difference. So there we are, pretty much done with the embroidery, and there's the back. I'm going to see how neat the back looks. It's just beautiful. Always pull up my bobbin threads with each color change, and anytime I stop the machine. So I'm going to put this little strip of fabric across the bottom and kind of make it look like, I think I can make it look like the jar of flowers is actually sitting on an old tablecloth, like a vintage tablecloth. And these strips of fabric, I got a whole bunch of them, and they are from Temu. They are not the kind of fabric that we're used to, but they will work just fine for any kind of little decorative thing like this. And when you order a jelly roll from Temu, you don't get 44-inch strips, you get half of that, so like 21-inch strips. So I'm going to have to sew a couple strips together here to get enough length to go all the way across the bottom of my towel. And I have actually ordered fabric from Temu more than once. I've ordered fat quarters, which I back with like a woven fuse stabilizer and make bags out of some, little coin bag purses and makeup bags and things like that. And then the jelly rolls, and I use these little jelly rolls as trim. I wouldn't ever suggest putting them in a quilt or a pot holder or anything like that. They just are not the same, but they are very reasonably priced and work just wonderfully for trims and maybe loops, something like that. So I'm going to press this and kind of pat this down a little bit. This is a bias seam, so to be kind of careful. Let's pat that down, and then I'm going to take this to my iron and press it right down the middle, the whole length of the piece of fabric. And then I'm going to pin it. I also pressed a line on my towel so that I've got a guide, and I'm going to pin this with the fold going toward the embroidery and the raw edge going toward the line. And I'm going to stitch this onto my towel. I'll pin in a couple of places and and I'm leaving some overhang on each side of the towel. I'm just going to use that fold that I pressed into the towel as my guide, and I'm just using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm a regular stitch length, 2.5, and regular tension, everything normal. Just get this stitch down. I really do like this Temu fabric. I wouldn't use it on anything really important, but it's very pretty. It feels fine. It's lighter, but it does feel fine, and I just like it just fine. Yeah. Using my foot pedal kickback to knot off and cut the threads. And now I'm going to tuck in the ends, get these trimmed, and tuck in the ends and fold this down on itself. Put a couple pins. I'm staying right on the edge of the towel. All the raw edges are concealed. This is going to be really cute. And I'm using a 1/8 inch top stitch on this little strip of fabric. Just about ready to get started here. And the first few stitches on anything that's got a little bit of bulk can sometimes be a little bit difficult. But I am using my 37D foot, and on a Bernina, anytime you're using a D foot, that means you'll engage your dual feed. And I did not find that I had any dragging or trouble on any of the bulky parts on the edges of these flour sack towels using my dual feed foot. One side down, one more to go. Turn the corner here and stitch this end down. Head back up the other side. This little towel is turning out so cute. And there it is, all done. I'll give it a good press, and it will be ready to give as a gift. Thanks so much for tagging along with me today. I hope you're having a great day. Enjoy your sewing, and I'll see you next time. Bye.